possible to live only by having these animals. The farmer has to have a secondary income. When the first cars came to Norway, it became evident that roads had to be built, and a new way of living came into being: road building. A typical stone bridge built in 1860 will be presented to you on this excursion. The village of Olden is located at the end of one of the most beautiful fjords of Norway. The name of the fjord is Nordfjord, and the fjord stretches itself 120 kilometers from the western coast into the country. Finally, the fjord divides itself into three arms: the Bay of Stryn, the Bay of Loen, and finally the Bay of Olden. The name of the municipality is Stryn, with approximately 7,000 inhabitants. In this village we have 600 in the center and 400 more in the valley. Every summer, thousands of tourists come to this village to have a look at the nature and the enormous glacier at the end of the valley, the Jostedal Glacier. 500 square kilometers, the largest glacier in the mainland of Europe. The plateau of the glacier is located 1,700 meters above sea level and stretches 24 arms through the valleys down below. And the most famous of them is no doubt the Briksdal Glacier. Some days before Christmas in 1974, there was a concert performed by the local choir and the brass band in the village in this church. During the concert, the inside walls of the church began shivering. The electric light fell out. Everything got black. Only the terrible creaking in the walls was to be heard. The priest, feeling a certain responsibility for his congregation, shouted out at the top of his voice, "Out immediately! The church is going to fall down." And according to reliable sources, the priest was the first one out. But the church didn't fall down. But in order to be sure, these wires were attached to the tower and bolted in the ground. Here the inhabitants assemble on festive occasions. On the left-hand side of the village hall, a huge waterfall is coming dancing downwards from the glacier that surrounds the valley. The quality of this water is excellent for drinking water and is the water source for the village. The water pipe will lead the water through an ultraviolet cleaning station to the village. Also, the tourist ships will get their water supply from this waterfall. On the right-hand side we have the Olden River, which comes from the Olden Lake and have its outlet in the fjord. At the riverbanks we can see the platforms on which the salmon fishers are walking with their fishing rods. Usually the man will use tin bait in various colors depending on the weather. The artists, they use an artificial fly. They will keep the fly flying in the air until a salmon is observed in the river, and the fly will be landed exactly in front of the mouth of the salmon, and the struggle between fishermen and the salmon begins. Lochifossen is the name of this waterfall. At the bottom of the waterfall, the first hydroelectric power station was built here in 1915. This is the first hydroelectric power station ever built in this district. Originally, the station only provided the center of Olden with electric current, but now the station is attached to the national net. There is no salmon passage here in this waterfall, and the salmons are unable to jump up to the outlet of the lake, so there are no salmons in the lake, but there are trout in abundances. To get the trout, we usually use a fishing equipment which is called the otter. The otter is a wooden brett with lead at one side so that the brett will float vertically on the surface. Between the brett and the rowing boat there is a line, and on the line there are artificial flies. When the boat is moving across the surface, these flies will be dancing on the surface. And when the trout can see these flies, they will jump up to snatch the flies. And this is, as usual, their last meal. The second last ice age had disappeared 10,000 years before Christ. The climate in this region was just like the Mediterranean climate. There was not a single bit of ice here, and the land started to rise from out of the ocean. And 6,500 years before Christ, this lake became separated from the fjord and became fresh water instead of salt water. 600 years ago, we became an aggravation of the climate, and the glacier reached its greatest extension in 1850. Ada is the name of the first moraine we meet in Olden Valley, a visible remnant of the geological history of Western Norway. We are going to cross this moraine, and the train will go slowly across the river bridge so that you may have an opportunity to take a picture of the oldest bridge in this district, built in 1860. But do not leave the train, because the train is not going to stop. As you can see, the bridge has got 3 passages of water, but the pillar on the eastern side is constructed like the bow of a ship, to split the current in case of too much water in the river. In spring, when the ice melting begins, there are sometimes inundations which will overflow the fields of the farmers further up in the valley. To avoid the damage caused by inundation, the outlet of the lake into this river was lowered with 2 meters in 1940. Up to 1950, tourists were transported in horse carriages across that stony bridge to the quay of the steamer on this moraine. There was no electric current available, and motive power provided by nature itself was taken into use. An open water conduit from a stream from in the hillside made this wheel turn, and the belt from the driving wheel made the thrashing machine do its work. And when the thrashing of barley was going on, the sound of the thrashing machine could be heard in the whole neighborhood. 5 avalanches used to come down from the mountain here in spring and the winter. Therefore, the houses are built in clusters. To build a house nearby the trace of an avalanche was a sure suicide. In 1952, about 1 kilometer from here, a farmer and his 2 sons, they were working in the field together with a horse. Suddenly they got surprised of an avalanche, and the avalanche didn't touch them, but the father as well as the horse and one of the boys were killed by the pressure of air. And this happened in 1952, and the man who survived the catastrophe is still living in Olden. The train will drive down